when you look at this team and look at their issues, do you believe there is a coaching issue or is there a personnel issue with this team? We've talked a lot about the latter and the player personnel, but what do you think? Is it a combination of both? I guess that's fair to put that in there too.
I think fans are always going to blame the coach, and I think it's also a product of what the roster is right now. You're not really going to change much on the roster. I mean, I guess you could trade OG Anunoby or trade Mikal Bridges or try to, but those wouldn't be smart moves considering what you just gave up to get those guys or just re-sign them. So if you're a fan looking at this roster and you say, all right, well, this is what I'm dealing with, what can possibly change? Oh, the coach can change. So that's what I think that's about.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Can the Knicks, how do they close the gap? Because we know there's a gap between Celtics and the Cavs are here, they're here. There's a huge gap there. Is there anything they can do over the final 24-ish games of the season to close the gap between the Celtics, the Cavs? Can they do that?
Yeah, beat them. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but I know they played Cleveland twice.
Two more times, Steph.
Yep. In April. And when is their Boston game?
Boston game, I believe, I want to say it's the end of March.
April 8th.
Oh, it's April 8th? Okay.
Yeah. And the two Cleveland games are on the second half of back-to-backs.
Okay. So
is the Boston game the season finale? Is that season finale? Regular season finale?
No, the Boston game is fourth to last. They end Sunday, April 13th in Brooklyn.
Okay. Sorry, Steph. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. So I mean, they got plenty of time. They got plenty of time before those games to shore up whatever problems they have, to figure out a way to beat those teams. And then, listen, I've seen it a lot where the regular season results don't matter. And, the playoff series happens and whatever happened in the regular season, it just completely flips on its head. But when you get blown out in that kind of way, that's got to be just demoralizing. And that, to me, that would carry, if they get blown out again by Boston, that would carry over into a playoff series. That would be in my head. I'm sure that would be in the players' heads. Like, we can't figure out a way to even get close to this team. So you have to show something more in that last game against Boston and beat them. Like, to me, that would be the most important game for the rest of this season. And when you talk about closing the gap, that's how you do it. You beat them, you figure out a way to do it. And listen, we don't know, it sounds like it's so late in the season, maybe Boston will start resting guys. We know Tibbs ain't resting guys. So, maybe you can't put too much stock in that matchup, but I think that's the game you circle.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder if Boston will have their players available. And I agree with you, Steph. They got to beat them, even though the gap feels wide. And I wonder how much Boston's in their head right now. At least right now, the fact they've got blown out 3 times against them. I wonder how much that is.
Certainly seems like it. I mean, they got Jason Tatum is just, man, he's been unstoppable against them. He does whatever he wants. And then you had that last game, and they were in the first quarter, they did like a hockey sub.
Yeah.
They just brought in 4 new guys, and we're like, all right, well, we're smoking you guys with the last lineup. We'll just do it with this lineup too. And they were killing them with like Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser. So, I mean, it was just, I know they were harping on that third quarter comeback, but to me, that game was never in doubt.
Did that mean anything to you, Steph, at all? The third quarter comeback, you sitting there watching that in Boston. Is there any positives you think that team could take from what we saw in the third quarter where they got it down to 4 points?
Well, that was what they were harping on, because they were looking to grasp at something, just in terms of we need something to hold on to. So that's what they kept talking about. I found Jalen Brunson's post-game comments that game to be interesting, but I didn't understand them, to be honest. He was talking about how they need to care less. And then I was like, well, what do you mean? Do you care too much? And he was like, no, care less about me, like me. And my interpretation of it was he didn't want to call out people in the way that Josh Hart does, so he didn't really articulate it well. But it was basically like, guys need to stop playing selfish. So, the Jalen Brunson never says anything critical, and that's about as close as you're going to get. So, I thought he was very interesting post game. He seemed almost emotional. He seemed like he was, that loss took a toll on him.
What I also found interesting about that comment, and I saw you comment on that too, Steph, was that in that run, most of that run that the Knicks had happened with Mikal Bridges on the bench. And then you've had some fans talking about wanting to see more minutes for Deuce because of what the Knicks gave up to get Mikal Bridges. You talked about before, the 5 first-round picks and all that. Do you think there's a point? We did see Tom Thibodeau bench him in Charlotte before. We did see that on Black Friday. Is there a point where Tibbs might make a lineup change there, or is there something to be taken out of the fact that Mikal Bridges wasn't on the floor when the team made that run?
Yeah, I mean, there is. I mean, Tibbs will never take him out of the starting lineup. But
Right.
as you mentioned, if another group has it rolling, he's shown that he will keep Mikal Bridges on the bench in crunch time or in big moments in the second half. I mean, you mentioned the Charlotte game. He did that for, I think, almost the entire fourth quarter of that game. So, yeah, I think that he will never take Mikal Bridges out of the starting lineup. He leads the NBA minutes. They traded 5 first-round picks to get him. That's probably the most draft picks the Knicks have ever traded for anybody, even karl-anthony. So, no, he's never going to take Mikal Bridges out of the starting lineup. If they were ever to make a starting lineup change, whether it's putting Mitch at center or maybe rolling with Deuce somewhere, my guess it would be Josh Hart moving to the bench.